Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you all so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It's season 4. And once again, the Midtown Madness is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. Pete, my work is doing a Independence Day adjacent potluck this week. And I tried to have the conversation where I wanted to know if anybody was bringing tortilla chips so that I could supply Two Men in a Garden products as my contribution to the event. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to stop in at the store tomorrow morning and pick up some tortilla chips and some chips and salsa and maybe some Two Men in a Garden pickles to please the non-salsa fans. But yeah, Two Men in a Garden, it is literally the first thing I think about when I'm going somewhere to bring with me, right? If I go to a party, Two Men in a Garden salsa, it's something for work, Two Men in a Garden salsa. And I think you guys should do that too. Everybody loves salsa. Everybody loves chips. Go out there, get Two Men in a Garden salsa for all your summer parties and be the star of the show. Actually, you know what? The salsa is the star of the show. You are a very important supporting cast member. Get Two Men in a Garden at any local grocery store or online at twomeninthegarden.com. If you're looking for those fresh fruit salsa flavors for summer, hit online first. That's my suggestion to you. $9.99 shipping nationwide. You can't beat that. Follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter. Pete, this interview that we are about to drop, I do not give a shit if you don't care about anything other than Billiken basketball, and that's why you listen to this podcast. This interview's entertaining as hell. Please listen to it.
Yeah, please do. We had a great time. I think this is one of the absolute best interviews, most fun that we've ever done. I think you are really going to enjoy Sarah Adam. I learned a ton, had a great time talking to her. This is everything that I like our talks to be, Zach.
Yeah. And to clarify, we spoke with Sarah Adam, US Wheelchair Rugby team member for the 2024 Paris Paralympics. And SLU professor of occupational science and occupational therapy. We're going to kick it over there right now without any further ado. Billiken fans, I'm super excited to welcome on Sarah Adam. She is a professor of occupational science and occupational therapy in SLU's Boisvert College of Health Sciences. She was also named to the 12-person USA Wheelchair Rugby team that will compete at the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris from August 28th to September 8th. And she's making history as the first woman ever to be named to the team. Sarah, thank you so much for joining the Midtown Madness Podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sarah, if our listeners know one thing about me is that I am a sucker for the USA competing internationally in anything. I don't care what it is. I was watching the Cricket World Cup and I was invested through every over. So I am super excited to follow you and your journey to Paris.
Yeah, we love it. And USA, I mean, like it's definitely a family, whether we're talking about the Olympics or the Paralympics, everybody with the trials going on right now with swimming and track and field and gymnastics, like can't get enough of it. It's awesome. Little, preview into Paris coming up here really soon. It's exciting.
I think the coolest part of the swimming trials is just it's the perfect American hubris and ingenuity to put an above ground pool in a football stadium.
Absolutely incredible. Like when they had said it a while back, I was like, I don't know how that's going to work, but of course Team USA pulls it off. Amazing venue, great to be breaking records with viewership. I mean, we're seeing it not only in the Olympics and the Paralympics, but also like women in sports and all that. Like we're just finding these interesting areas that haven't gotten attention before that are really like blowing up and everybody's getting excited and getting behind the stories and getting behind the sport. And I love to see it. And how can you not root for Team USA, right?
It's one of the good part of the streaming that we've got going. So
Yeah.
like everybody's really hating on like where the streaming's going for like TV movies. We are in a golden age for niche sport interest in this world where you can find anything and watch it at a super high competitive level.
Yeah, and as people are getting excited, as more and more people are getting excited, it like changes the algorithms and pushes it out to more people and gets it more attention. And so it's exactly what these grassroots efforts have always needed at our disposal to really get some of the recognition and excitement building around our sports and our stories.
So speaking of recognition and excitement, on April 22nd, the OT faculty and students, along with Fred Postello, surprised you with a celebration in your honor for being named to the squad. What did it mean to get that recognition, and how has the school been with you pursuing this kind of on the side? Because we're guessing this is going to involve a little time away from work.
Yeah, it's certainly been taking a lot of my time and efforts. To start with, I was incredibly surprised. I had absolutely no idea. I had just gotten back from a competition in Denmark. And so while I was out in Denmark competing, they had organized this whole thing. So absolutely surprised to see the support from all of our OT students that came up the stairs at the rec center and they're cheering Team USA, and to see our dean and then Fred Postello there and just so many people is honestly just shows the support that SLU has given me to go train and compete and really show like, as occupational therapists, the whole purpose behind what we do is helping people re-engage with meaningful activities. And the SLU OT program has said like that, I am embodying that. I'm out there doing that. And that's what we want to show and support. And SLU has been just incredible in allowing me and support to do what I do and supporting me and highlighting the platforms and almost amplifying the platforms that already are existing to talk about adaptive sports and disability and female in sports and equity and all these different things that now I have the privilege to get to speak about in a I think often kind of unique way.
When we were working on getting this scheduled, you mentioned that you had a camera crew following you last week, which was an incredible flex, by the way. From what I understand, they're going to be following you throughout this entire journey.
Yeah.
What's it been like having them around, and really how much access do they have?
Yeah, I honestly, I say it all the time. I feel like I've been thrown into this entirely different universe. Like I was just a therapist and had MS and like living a normal life, and I make Team USA and of all the, it's kind of like right place and right time. And I think the Paralympics is growing. And right now, leading into LA 2028, when we're hosting the Olympics and Paralympics here at home in the United States, there's this like extra push to really build the support for both Olympics and Paralympics in the United States. And I get the privilege of being a part of that. And a component of that has been the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee putting in a lot of money in it, investing into highlighting our stories. So yeah, my life, I have cameras around me all the time and interviews and these really cool opportunities to share our stories. And the main one right now that we're really excited about is Murder Ball is a really common documentary. It would viral in 2004, even though viral wasn't even a thing back then. The Jackass crew, I hope I can say that on your guys' podcast, but they picked up on Murder Ball and they got them all excited about it. And so it really blew up and was this amazing tool to help people that were newly injured or have a disability get exposed to this whole different world of wheelchair rugby and adaptive sports. And therapists like me as an occupational therapist, I used it working with young 19, 20, 21-year-old guys who suddenly are in the hospital with a spinal cord injury. And you're like, hey, watch this documentary, see what's out there for you, see what your life could be like. It doesn't have to be this woe is me, my life is hard, my life is difficult. It's like, look at these opportunities that are still available for you. And so, that documentary came out in 2004. A lot has changed. A lot has changed in our sport. A lot has changed in the disability world and equity and access and so many opportunities. And so they're kind of redoing that Murder Ball documentary with our team. And I think an amazing opportunity, again, to share our story as many other outlets are allowing us to do. Just to me, it's really exciting because I know there's so many people that have been impacted and their lives changed by just knowing that this is something that exists and it is out there. And we want as many people as possible to know this is available for you.
It wouldn't be a Zach interview of somebody without mentioning the most obscure of murder ball entertainment appearances, and that's the first season of Friday Night Lights.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that had like actual players from the USA team. The actual USA coach was involved in that, and really, truly one of the better told stories about spinal cord injury and getting involved in finding a reconnection to your identity as an elite athlete in a different way. Now their timeline was way sped up by a lot, but
it was Jayson Street. It was he's superhuman.
Absolutely. How do you not love 6? You know, that was actually, so to be fair, I'm a little bit sad. I was number 6, and then one of our veterans came back to the team, and he had been wearing 6 for years before me, and I was like, that's your number. But I was really.
Did you get a gift out of it? Did you get you didn't get like a steak dinner or something?
Honestly, I should have bargained a little. I was just trying to be a good teammate. I'm like, he gave the veteran his number back when he
Friday Night Lights box set.
Honestly, yeah, 6 was a great number, and I did it because of Jayson Street for sure.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. So we've got Friday Night Lights. We've got the documentary that now I guess 20 years ago came out and kind of made a lot of people familiar. I know. I'm putting that in. I watched this a long time ago.
I remember. I think this was.
I did too. I remember the whole crew being on Jackass and getting to know Johnny Knoxville and them doing weird things, and yeah.
So we have at least, a couple cultural touch points where people might be familiar with the sport, but for those who aren't, can you kind of describe it at a high level? Like kind of how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, so many layers. I would say, at the surface, it basically looks like high-speed bumper cars with wheelchair users. So it's played on a basketball court, 4-on-4, all people who are technically considered tetraplegic. So we have, significant impairment in our arm, both of our arms and our legs and in trunk. But that doesn't, it is so fast. Full contact. It's one of the only full contact sports in the Paralympics. So we are going in as fast as we can and slamming into each other and flipping each other in our wheelchairs. These like kind of Mad Max looking chair setups are not what you're used to seeing out in the everyday world. They're built to sustain these full contact hits, and it's a brutal sport. The goal of the game is to get the ball from one end of the court to the other through the cones, kind of similar to able-bodied rugby. That gives you a try, that gives you 1 point. But the whole time trying to get across that court, there's people going and trying to hit you, flip you over, grab that ball out of your lap. It's a brutal sport. And then kind of as you get to know it more intimately, there's so much awesome strategy involved, and how do you utilize people with different physical abilities out there, and thinking 2-3 steps ahead, so you're always staying ahead of your opponent. So a nice balance there with the physicality, high speed, really exciting for anybody to watch. And then as you get to know it more, awesome, I don't know, like kind of intricacies that are drawn from a bunch of different sports, basketball, hockey, football, you name it. So really complex sport. I know I went a little deeper there than you probably meant.
No, that's exactly what we wanted.
That's our show. Like we've said it before, like the interviews that Billiken, coaches and whatnot do with, the local news guys, that's high level. We love that. We like to get just into the finer points.
Yeah, that's the fun part of the podcast, right? The stories, the finer points, go down rabbit holes.
Oh, yes.
For sure.
So reading some articles about you before this, one of the things that drew our attention was that your entry into this sport was through your work in sports and exercise for people with disabilities. Can you tell us more about the work that you do?
Yeah, so I came down to St. Louis 10 years ago now, gosh, and I go to school for occupational therapy. I'll admit I went to WashU. Don't hold it against me, being the enemy there on the other side of the city. But I'd always played sports. I started coaching sports when I was in undergrad. I coached high school softball, and so when I came down here, I was just looking for a way to kind of combine that love of sports and coaching, and then my new love of occupational therapy. And adaptive sports was a perfect fit, and we had a class assignment that required us to go out in the community and work with a community program. And DASA, which is our local adaptive sports program, the Disabled Athletes Sports Association, had a wheelchair rugby practice going on. One of my professors at WashU is actually Carrie Morgan, who's one of my mentors and continues to be this day, and she's on the wheelchair rugby team here in St. Louis. So she's now actually my teammate. But at the time she was like, yeah, come check out wheelchair rugby. She was really pushing that for us. And as soon as I got there, it's like, yep, this is it. I love the full contact. I love the high speed. I love the strategy behind it. A lot of it was kind of just reminding me of being a part of the softball team and just a great community of people. And so I kind of attached as a volunteer student in occupational therapy school before I even knew that I had MS, which is pretty wild to look back and see the things that kind of fell into place to connect me with the right people at the right time. And I, now as an occupational therapist, I have a love for adaptive sports and exercise and how it helps improve people's quality of life. And it makes a difference in people's lives positively. And I can't speak enough about it. So I'll nerd out for hours on that topic. You don't want to start me down that road. I promise.
I was actually going to ask you what sports you were competing in. As kind of like you talked about coaching softball, but were you competing in the classic rugby as well?
No. So I would say, so growing up, I mean, every traditional sport you could possibly think of. I actually played with my brother growing up. My brother's a year older than I am. But I was always, kind of athletic and looking for that competitive spirit. And so playing a year up and with my brother against the guys, I think it kind of prepared me for what I'm doing now. But, and I hate to give him the credit. It pains my soul a little bit to give him credit for my athleticism and success right now, but he deserves it. And I mean, our whole family, very athletic minded, playing everything I could. But softball was probably the one that I was the best at, most talented at. So went to college for 1 year playing softball and threw on my shoulder and decided to go coaching. And honestly, I in many ways love coaching more than I love playing, which I think is kind of why I love teaching now and what I do as an occupational therapist. So
it feels like for every really elite female athlete, there was always an older brother.
Yeah.
There was always an older brother that was pushing them.
Yeah, don't give him too much credit here, though, Zach. Like we're not going down that road. But
to be fair, I'm a younger brother when I am a brother. So yeah, I didn't have that. I didn't get that. An older brother give me that.
I think it was honestly when he'd strap me up in my roller skates and in the basement. And I remember and like shoot airsoft guns at me, and the grit that gets built when you're getting a shot.
You're like Happy Gilmore out there. 363 days till next year's tryouts. Got to toughen up.
Got to toughen them up. Or I was the goalie and he'd slap shots or whatever for hockey or so whatever sport, getting beat up on the football field, and I loved every second of it. I got my ass kicked over and over and over again. And I loved every second of it, and I think like very genuinely, a lot of that carries through to the grit. And just like refusal to be limited by my circumstances. Like, okay, yeah, you're playing against guys that are way bigger than you. Figure it out. Figure out what makes you unique on that court. What do you bring to that court? And for me, it's like, all right, I might be 50 pounds lighter than all of you guys in a full contact sport, but I'll be smarter.
You mentioned the MS and you were diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2014. What's interesting to me is you talked about that psychological aspect, that woe is me, and kind of how it takes people, it takes a lot of time for, I would say most, or I'm guessing or assuming most people who are diagnosed with a physical limitation or disability. How do you think your prior understanding of adaptive athletics allowed you to kind of overcome that more quickly, or even avoid it altogether?
Yeah, I mean, huge. Obviously, there was a period there going through the diagnosis, and then immediately after actually, because I was diagnosed officially in 2016. The process started in 2014. It takes a little while to happen. And so it was literally like, I am walking across the stage for graduation and have just been told that I for sure have MS. And like, this is, we don't know what the outlook of your life is going to be and whatnot. And so it took me a while to digest that. I did a lot of that on my own. Like I didn't really share that I had MS with many people, if really anybody, even my parents, because there's this like denial and that's not what's going on. And so I certainly went through it. I will credit my access to and knowledge of adaptive sports for my ability to say, okay, next play, right? Like same thing being an athlete. Like this isn't what I expected. This wasn't what I had hoped for. but this is your situation and next play. What are you going to do? So I switched from a master's to a doctorate, knowing I was going to have to teach in the future, which I think would have ultimately happened anyway. Just happened sooner than I was expecting it. And, as soon as we're in St. Louis, I love playing in like the kickball leagues and rec softball and all that. And, that slowly, and running and shooting hoops, and like that was my outlet. And slowly that was kind of taken away from me, and I was no longer able to do those things. And so to be able to quickly replace those with adaptive sports and jumping in a rugby chair to go for a push and go work out. I think about it a lot. I almost went to school up in the Quad Cities for grad school, and I would have still had MS. I would have been diagnosed with this, but I would not have been connected with a community of people that had kind of a similar mindset, that athletic mindset of like, I'm not letting this slow me down. You're not putting me in a bubble. This is just something I manage. It doesn't define me and what I'm going to do in my life. Like I would have never been connected to those people, that community, those opportunities if I didn't come down here to St. Louis for school. I think about that a lot, of like, yeah, absolutely helped me quickly transition to next play.
Yeah. So you talk about your transition to playing the sport.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering about the landscape of the sport itself. Actually, before we go to that, what was the biggest learning curve when it came to moving to, being an athlete in a wheelchair, right? As you're transitioning to just a different type of athleticism.
It's like learning like hockey, right? You teach stuff to play hockey, you got to skate first.
Yeah. Yeah. It was definitely like learning the mobility of it. I was pretty fast playing softball. I was a lefty slapper, so speed was kind of my game. And so, finding some almost like parallels to being in a chair. Like, all right, my mind works very similar to like a fast runner. So like, let me make sure I can get fast in the wheelchair. But I said, yeah, it's just something, it takes a little while. It's something to get used to. I still laugh. Anytime I put somebody in a rugby chair, an able body, they love it. They have a blast. It's so much fun. But for the first little bit, it's like they don't move. They just like sit there still. And I do remember being that player when I was a student and just starting getting in a chair for the first time. They're like, just go sit over half and put your hands up and catch the ball. Like that was all I did for like the first 2 years of playing in St. Louis. I was like, oh, you've been around rugby forever. I was like, yeah, I've been around rugby. All they told me to do is go there's like smalls, go deep and put your hand up in the air and close your eyes. Like that was, I didn't really have a whole lot of training before I entered USA, if I'm being honest. My teammate will attest that my coach, actually, Joe Delagrave, our head coach, will attest to the fact that I really didn't know very much by the time I was trying out for Team USA.
And that's what I was just about to get into is like, what is that stratification like within the sport? Like, how do you go from being introduced to the sport and playing recreationally to then playing competitively to then playing internationally?
Yeah, I think some of it is function wise, right? Like if you've got some good function out there, and that's what Team USA needs. And function, by that, I mean, like you've got a lot of arm strength, core strength, to be able to utilize that make you a valuable player on that court. And so coming in, I had a lot of functional abilities, a lot of function. The first thing we do in tryouts is speed testing. You sprint a mile. You do a lot of full court sprinting, that kind of see how fast you are, see how your endurance is, how your physicality is. And I was like, all right, I need to show, like, I need to get people to turn their head. And this is the first thing that we do. And I'm going to get people to see like, damn, that girl's fast. Or like, wow, her endurance is really good. And so I do remember my first tryout with Team USA. This is 2021 in December. And the guys had just had Tokyo not too long ago. And so they hadn't really, they took a couple months off there. And so they put me at the front of the mile. First session of tryouts. First time like being around a bunch of these Team USA players, the best in the world. And like, Sarah, you go in the front for the mile. I swear to God, I pushed one of the fastest miles out of pure fear. I was terrified that whole time. I thought they were just like hazing the rookie or something. Yeah, just put her in the front. But I did find like I ended up third in the mile out of like 40 something. And that was my first time of being like, all right, maybe I do have what it takes. And then from there, it's just showing like, yeah, I'm a blank slate. I'm coachable. I'm determined. I've got the grit. I've got what it takes to really quickly learn the sport and be impactful. And that's what I think I help show for our head coach and the selection committee is like, I'm an elite. I was used to being an elite athlete. I played college softball. I knew how to do that. Now I just need to like translate it to a different sport. And that to me was pretty easy.
One thing that I've kind of been able to draw a parallel in my head is the endurance athlete aspect. I do a lot of running, cycling,
Yeah.
but how do you like the idea of the aerobic engine? You know, a cyclist can go out there and cycle for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. A runner can go out there, do the same. How do you go about, you know, training that aerobic engine?
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned this because just yesterday I had a check-in with my head coach. He's like, how is training going? Because we all train individually. Like we're spread across the United States. We get together once a month or so for a training camp. But a lot of what we do, whether in the weight room or pushing for cardio, is on our own. A lot of our training on our own. And so she's like, hey, how are things going? And I was like, man, it's like no matter what I do, I just feel like I'm out of shape and I can't quite figure out why. And he's like, have you thought that maybe it's because you have MS? And I was like, honestly, no. Like that, I know that sounds preposterous, but like that is not the first thing that comes to my mind is the reality that MS, yeah, it does like limit my physical capacity and what I can do. And you know, and for all intents and purposes, like trying to compete as an elite athlete and train as an elite athlete with MS is just, it's stupid. It's ridiculous. And I'm not gonna lie and say it's been a cakewalk. Like it is a tough thing to push through. But for me, I love that mental battle. I love being able to say like I am in control of my body. And yeah, it's going to limit me at times, but I love seeing like, how far can I push this? What can my body do despite having MS? And I love showing that to the world. That's what I love about wheelchair rugby, like murder ball, full contact sport. Like what a better way to break down those stereotypes of all these people that think, oh, you have a disability, you need to be careful and put in a bubble. Like screw that. Like let's show people that that's not the case.
I'm sitting here and my brain is going directly to like repurposing a cycling trainer, like a direct drive trainer for the wheelchair, just to like get indoor like aerobic train.
Yeah, no. So
are people just like Ivan Dragoing this kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's cool you mention it because they have their rollers that people in wheelchairs can use to like work out inside, but they have no resistance. So like the wheels just start turning. It's like, okay. So our Carrie Morgan, who I was talking about earlier, who is actually, so she's my mentor from WashU. She's an OTPT. She's a professor at WashU that's a Paralympian. She was the first female to make a Team USA wheelchair rugby training squad. She's total badass. She ended up switching to Paralympic track. She has had multiple medals in Paralympic track, but she, on her off time, when she's not a Paralympian, is a professor and does this amazing research. And she created like a treadmill, one of the best treadmills for wheelchair users that has resistance both ways and all these like cool things it does. But pretty expensive little machine that's not going to fit in this apartment. I'll tell you that. So that, I would say thank God to SLU, because I was actually at the rec center today. They've got that awesome Nike Elite 100 basketball camp going on right now. So fun watching that for a little bit and get a little workout in. But I mean, amazing to have access to the track and the gym courts and the workout room and like amazing ways to work out and stay in shape indoors when it's 105 degrees outside.
Yeah. So you talked about yourself as a blank slate coming in, but now that you're more established with Team USA, what do you feel you bring in terms of your skill set?
I think like obviously a lot of functional ability on that court. So for the Paralympics, each of us have a classification that takes a look at like how much function we have in our hands and in our arms and in our core that we can utilize to be successful on the court. And so I'm right in the middle, but because I'm a female, we get like an additional allowance, which is super, super helpful. But I also think just for me, I've always been kind of a leadership mindset. So I'm out there like communicating and leading and directing a little bit. And then, you know, using my brain, I would say out there more than just going and trying to fight my way through. Like, I know I'm not going to push through a 200-pound guy. There's no way, but I can be smart. I don't know about that. I'm pretty strong, but they're pretty big guys. But I've got my softball arm so I can throw the ball, 3/4 of the court. Use my brain, be smart, use my, be a communicator out there, be a leader out there. So I think every single one of us brings something really unique and necessary to each of our lines. And for me, it's just like, and when I'm in a different line, what does that line need me to be? And I'll mold into it. I think that probably is one of my best qualities, or one that I'm most proud of, is just like molding into what does the team need me to be in this moment, and I'll do it.
One thing you mentioned was the classification, and I kind of had a moment where I realized that you mentioned like all the physical aspects, but then we talked about the kind of the respiratory aspects, I guess, and the aerobic aspects. Is there a classification anywhere in adaptive sports for that? Like what could possibly be happening physiologically?
Not as much, and there, it's a hard thing to accommodate for, because like for me, with my MS, my fatigue, like fairly quickly, I'd say within 3-4 minutes on that court, my body can't communicate with my muscles in the same way. So I'll be super, super functional at the very beginning, and then all of a sudden you see this kind of drop off where I'm not able to access a lot of the muscles and coordination on that court. And there's unfortunately just not a way for them to incorporate that into our classification system. So, there's spinal cord injuries that have low, like they can't get the heart rate up, or their blood pressure is always low. That's something that happens to me where like fairly frequently my blood pressure will just drop, like completely bottom out on me. And so when you're an athlete, obviously that's not ideal. But it's not, it's just something, again, like we refuse to be limited by our circumstances. To some extent, we are all out there dealing with something different with our disability. And so nobody's using it as an excuse. And that's what I love about it. Like, look at me, don't look at my MS. Don't let my MS be an excuse. Like, this is the standard. You're an athlete. You need to be able to contribute, and you're an athlete first. And that's like, I thrive in that environment, the kind of no excuses environment.
So since wheelchair rugby made its Paralympic debut in 2000 in Sydney, only 5 women have competed at the games. How important is it for you to be one of the few women to do this, and the first for the US, compared to the challenge and honor of just being named to the national team in the first place? Like, how do you kind of scale those against each other?
I pushed back on it initially, if I'm being perfectly honest. My first year on the team, I was getting some attention for being, a female, and the uniqueness of that. And if anything, I used it as a motivator to say, all right, if you're going to get the attention for this, and to be fair, like right now, it's a huge story, female in sport and women's sport, and trying to grow that. And I love that. I'm all for it. But I wanted to make sure that if I'm getting the attention, it's because I'm a contributor to this team. I'm a relevant athlete. And so it pushed me to like, all right, be a phenomenal athlete, be a contributor, and work your way to the starting lineup for this team. And now it's like, all right, I feel like I've to some extent, earned some of the attention as an athlete, and I just happen to be a female. But again, I also think it is important that the movement that we're having in growth in women's sports, and to be able to be a small piece of that conversation and push that forward in the adaptive sport arena is huge, because it's not, unfortunately, whether you're talking wheelchair rugby or any adaptive sport, is not often talked about to people when they're in rehab. You get a female that's young, that has a car accident and a new injury, and used to be an athlete, and I would say more often than not, they're not being exposed to adaptive sports in the hospital, in rehab, in outpatients. They don't even know it exists. They don't know that it can help them, be a benefit for them, that it is for them. And so that's what I get to do, and I love being able to do that for wheelchair rugby, to say, this is what you love doing, do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
I think I think we're really fortunate being St. Louis University, where we have women's sports teams that are undeniable. Like, we'll sit here and say, hey, if you win, we'll cover you. It doesn't matter. The women's soccer team is absolutely undeniable. You have to follow them. You have to report on them. So I think I do see where you're coming from, and I do kind of like that, that aspect of, if I'm a woman who's playing sport, that's great. But am I playing sport at a level that is entertaining enough for me to be talked about? Exactly. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that, for sure.
Yeah. But also, like, that angle is going to be covered a lot,
God, we're too much
and going into this, like, the media attention's all going to go down that road. So
which is, it's been an interesting thing to kind of navigate, is suddenly not only am I being put in this position to be like a contributor and an important part of this team and shouldering some of that as one of the newer players, but also you have all this media stuff and this attention and like the slight extra pressure to like, don't mess this up. Don't suck, basically.
Besides not sucking, how much is it like sitting here and being like, why? People tell me they like, I'll have a random person, and this doesn't happen often, but when they do, I am very confused as to why they listen to me talk on this podcast.
Oh, for real. All the time. It baffles me to have the cameras coming here and NBC following me for a day and interviews with these amazing people and amazing opportunities. And yeah, you're kind of like, I don't think I'm that interesting. Like, I've known me my whole life. It's just not that exciting. But happy to have the opportunities. And for me, it's about utilizing, okay, like this is coming my way, whether I like it or not. It's like utilize it to do good and help people, help the Paralympic movement and help others get similar opportunities. Cause that's where we're at. That's the amazing part of the Paralympics right now is we're at this like precipice of opportunity and equality and like Paralympians getting amazing sponsorships from these great organizations and seen on TV and interviews. And like, that is what we need. We need opportunities to be seen. So to be able to be one of those people contributing to that is like such an amazing honor. And I want to make sure that I do it justice and do it well and put my all into that the same way that I put my all into being athlete, and the same way I put my all into being a professor. And, not an easy thing to juggle those three things, but wow, like what a cool opportunity to get to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So heading into the games this summer, how does the US kind of rate internationally within the context of the sport? And what are your team's expectations heading in?
Yeah, so we've been ranked number 1 for a while up until this last competition. They went to Canada and we got knocked down to number 2, which is fine. I think we used it in the right way as an opportunity to work on some different lines and experiment with some different things and not show our hand. And we're like, we don't care if we win this competition. We don't care if we drop a little in the rankings. And we're really excited about the pool that we're in. So we're going to be competing against Japan, Canada, and Germany. And we match up really well with a bunch of those teams. And the fun part, I think the interesting part is we have not, as Team USA, really gotten to show our full strength, our full ability, what we can do. We've had some different players traveling to competitions and some people staying home, myself included for a couple of those due to a variety of different circumstances. And so I think we're going to surprise a lot of people in the world. I think some people are underestimating us based on our last couple of performances, our last couple of competitions, but we have not been necessarily full strength at those competitions. So we're excited to see. I think when you look at it on paper, our main lineup stacks up against the best in the world. So as long as we stay dialed in and we play USA ball and we're going to be a hard team to stop. But this is by far and away the most competitive bracket for wheelchair rugby in the Paralympics ever. Like there are 7 teams that could easily pull out winning gold. At this competition. So it'll be a fun one to watch. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what to plan. So you're sort of planning for everything, but it'll be what we know it'll be is fun to watch and compete in.
So the top 3 is truly wide open then.
Yeah, it's all is going to come down to who's on that day, who's feeling good. Rugby, wheelchair rugby in particular, is a game where you can't make many mistakes. Just there's some games that are nearly flawless where there's maybe 2 errors in the entire game that determine who's going to win. And that is a scary thing. You think about basketball where it's like, how many missed shots can you have and still be fine? And, playing baseball and playing softball growing up, if you get a 300 batting average and you're doing really, really good. Well, that doesn't exist in wheelchair rugby. It's perfection or you're going to lose.
So you mentioned that gold medal. Other than winning the gold medal, what are your kind of individual goals for this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like outside of the tournament, some of the goals, and I've alluded to this already, it's just like what we can build as a brand for wheelchair rugby, for Team USA, for the Paralympics, for disability sport, for female in sport. Like there's all these different kind of platforms that we want to help grow. And so that's something I'm kind of doing outside of competition. But once we're in the competition, for me, this is, Team USA has been on the podium every single Paralympics since wheelchair rugby started, which is an incredible history to be a part of. And in the last couple, we've just fallen short, right? Like Tokyo and Rio, silver medals. And there's a lot of guys that are still on this team that were in Rio and in Tokyo, and this might be their last chance. I know for me with my MS, I don't know how my body's going to react after Paris. This could very, very, very well be my only Paralympics that I get to compete in. So it's like for all of us, whether you're a veteran that this might be your last chance and you've fallen short, or for me with my MS or whatever, you just want to make sure you've left it all out on the court. Whether the training now, it's like every day I'm like, what else am I doing to watch film, to train physically, to nourish my body, to whatever I can do. It's like I've dropped out of the world. Like I'm obsessed with wheelchair rugby and making sure that I, come August, feel like I've done absolutely everything I can as an athlete for my team.
I do. I guess my question for you is, how can people, maybe get involved with USA Wheelchair Rugby? Like, can they, support the program financially in any way? Or, is there shirts you can buy, or like jerseys? Like, cause I'm literally going to buy a jersey, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate, we obviously love gaining fans. That's it's why we do what we do, is to get people to come watch and get excited about our sport and support us. And I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that Team USA, like, it's not taking any government money. So they are fully sponsored. That's how they support us as athletes, is through sponsorships. And we've got some amazing organizations that help with that financially. But yeah, like donating to Team USA, there's an athlete marketplace that's available if you search it, that has like our Team USA stuff as well as like personalized stuff for people to purchase and wear when you're celebrating us out there on the court, whether you're at home or actually out in Paris, putting on that gear. And I mean, everybody loves representing. I see you there with the Team USA men's. Yeah,
I make choices. I make choices on the wardrobe.
Yeah,
I'm embarrassed to say it.
Gear in there.
What's that?
I said we got to get you some more Team USA gear.
I do. I need to get a USA Wheelchair Rugby shirt for sure.
I'm sure we could probably manage to get you some.
That's what we're talking about. Gear. I love that.
Zach's our gear guy.
No,
I am the gear whore. I really am. I am disgusting. Who doesn't love
a good? I mean, you should see the kit that I just saw. We just got our kit for Paris. Like just like
leak
pictures.
Leak it on the pod. Leak it on the pod. Leak it on the pod.
I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Oh, no.
They're starting to preview it on Instagram. So if you follow Team USA on Instagram, you're going to get to see some of what you'll see us wearing in Paris. And yeah, it's a cool little, I call it a retro look, honestly.
All right.
A little throwback.
I'm picturing the old, what was it, the 94 US soccer team with the denim.
Yeah.
You got to go.
We do. So we did USA Wheelchair Rugby because they had a competition in Canada. And so they did the Canadian tuxedo and got the denim button-up shirt with the US. Yeah.
That's amazing. Did you guys have any input?
Canada, right?
Get in there.
Did you have any input on the design, or how did that go?
No.
It's way above that pay grade.
Way above nor am I a fashionista by any means. Like, you don't want to hear my design ideas. But
I don't know. The decor behind you looks fine.
Yeah, that's like actually furniture, my friend. Like, okay. For me.
Right.
But yeah, I'll always take a kit, Team USA gear, Nike gear, obviously. Border, for sure.
Are you going to be able to make more of a, when this is over, any kind of vacation out of it?
Well, so I'm still a full-time professor.
You're right.
I still have a class.
What's that?
So my wonderful colleagues are covering, but they're only going to be so wonderful for so long. So I
Okay.
have a couple speaking engagements that are keeping me in Paris a couple days afterwards, and a bunch of my teammates are going around Europe. My family's going around Europe, and I'm like, I gotta head back to St. Louis. But it'll be nice. Honestly, I think at that point, to some extent, you're just like, get me back to some normalcy.
Sure.
And get me back in the classroom. And there's people to celebrate with here at the States that be exciting to get back to them. So hopefully with the gold medal around my neck, that'll make it a little sweeter.
Yeah.
You know, bring it to Chaffetz Arena.
I mean, whatever. At this point, whatever SLU wants me to do, I've already.
Okay, I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm an idea guy. I think halftime wheelchair basketball game.
Yeah.
I would show off the gold medal. God willing. Don't want to jinx anything. We're athletes. We're very superstitious here. But no, I'm actually curious. Being that one of the having to listen to everybody in the triathlon community drain on and on about whatever stupid things whatever first world problems they have. One of the things is the real things that people have a problem with is the barrier for entry. And I'm curious about the barrier for entry with adaptive athletics, especially like wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball. What's out there to kind of, I guess, subsidize or help people with the cost of those?
Huge area.
Yeah.
Huge area. Of interest for me too is just like the access to the equipment. So I don't know if you guys want to guess how much my rugby chair costs. I don't know if you got a chance to see what they look like.
Okay, I'm gonna go with I paid. I don't want to say I'm gonna say what I paid for my bike because I'm just gonna for a TT bike. I think it was $3,750.
I'll go way up, man. Keep going.
Shit.
Is it like 10 grand, like in the neighborhood of 10?
Oh,
wow.
10 grand, not covered by insurance. Need a new one every 3 years or so with how much it takes a beating at the international level. So, in the wheelchair basketball, chairs are like 5 grand. Wheelchair racing, another, 5, 6, 7, 8, up into like the 15 grand for some of those at the elite level. And so it's super, super expensive. Like you think about your to go play basketball, you pay for what, $100 pair of shoes and go out. Like for them, they got to pay a five grand chair. So I think the money and the access, which is why I love DASA in St. Louis, has a whole warehouse full of equipment. When you think about kids, right? Like how many sports did you try out as a kid that 2 months later, you're like, I hate that sport. Fuck that. That's really expensive for parents with kids with disabilities to go spend 3-5 grand on a chair. And the kid decide, I don't like that sport. So having local adaptive athletic programs, which are popping up all over the United States, we need more of them. We need more to pop up. We need more to get funded to allow access as a kid and then or as a newly injured adult to even know, like to try these sports out. And then beyond that, I mean, there's still standards like that you hear about it in the Olympic track and field that there are really high standards that you have to meet time-wise to even make the team. And the same thing exists for the Paralympics. There's certain time requirements that you need, whether you're track or swimming, and there's a ton of people that are out there competing for these spots. So it's super, super competitive. But I think that's not a bad thing. Like that's what USA is all about. I thrive on that.
If we have some listeners that may be interested in getting into it themselves, if they're confined to a wheelchair, or maybe they have a kid who is in need of an adaptive athletics program, where obviously DAS is one of those things. Where else can they go?
Yeah, your best bet nationally is Move United. So Move United is what, like, DAS is housed under that. Lakeshore, where we train for Team USA, is housed under that. So Move United will get you connected to whatever adaptive sports is in your area, teach you about adaptive sports, get you connected with people. So it's a community that once you're connected, if you try at all, even the littlest bit, we are a community that wants to support you and give you resources and help you out and give back, because that's really what helped us find our way. When there's just a lot, it felt like nothing was going right and nothing's in our control, and you find something, it's like, oh, okay, they've been through this, they've been through the ringer, they came out the other end, they can help me find my way. And that's what our community does for so many people. So and my advice to anybody out there that's wanting to get into adaptive sports is just reach out. We are a very welcoming community.
So Sarah, well, number one, we can't thank you enough for doing this, but number two, we want to give you the floor here at the end. As we're, zeroing in on these games and getting closer, how can we follow along with your journey, with your team, and then, give us anything that we can follow and, track
That's
your
what it's all
progress on.
about, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
what it's
yeah.
all about. So we want people to follow Team USA's page on Instagram. And social media obviously is like the easiest way right now. So Team USA on Instagram, USAWR, it's USA Wheelchair Rugby is the one that follows just us specifically. And then, it'll be streaming on NBC Olympics, Peacock, that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's gonna be so many different ways to tune in, whether streaming. Amazingly, we're gonna get, I hope, a lot of primetime TV opportunities, and then obviously, following all of our athletes, Olympic and Paralympic, for all of the sports in Team USA through Team USA's social media. That's what we want. We want a huge showing for USA, and not only for Paris, but leading into LA. And that's what we're trying to promote.
Sarah, you've been incredible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. I had a great time learning and just hearing your story, and I think our listeners are going to eat this shit up.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about that. Sarah, thank you again, and best of luck. Bring home that gold, huh?
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks. Good luck.
Take care.
Pete, that was the most American interview I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, I'm like ready to go run out in my yard and wave a big American flag right now while I'm shooting off fireworks. Amazing stuff.
It's pouring down rain, and I'm still going to try to light some bottle rockets.
I can't wait. I mean, like, as I'm looking at the calendar now, it's 2 months before.
I can't believe it's still a month to the Olympic, to like the first Olympics.
The Olympics, right? I know it does.
It should be starting next week, man.
I always think like, oh, it's such a short time from qualification to the games themselves, but that month gap, man, it really does feel like a long time, because I know swimming and track and some of the other ones just wrapped up, but nevertheless, super exciting. I can't wait, man.
Unbelievable. Thank you again to Sarah Adam. She's incredible. Something about Olympians on the podcast. They're just awesome.
They deliver.
They're cool as shit. By the way, again, I've said it before, I'll say it a million times. Funny, foul mouth, forthcoming. That's the best type of guest I can ever ask for. And certainly Sarah was that. Anybody who plays murder ball has to have a little edge to them, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know how. I mean, I think we should just wrap it up. Honestly, that interview speaks for itself.
It's all downhill from there.
Let's talk some men's basketball. Are we doing Jayson Tatum? Are we going to do this?
Do you want to do it? I think it's topical enough that
we should. Yeah, let's go ahead. We talked last week about how we'll go through it a little bit swiftly. We talked last week about Jayson Tatum and the tweets, I guess, post NBA championship. We didn't really have a hot take on that. I think we just all kind of just were like, I don't get it, but okay, let's roll. I was anyway. But Pete, let's talk a little bit about what if Jayson Tatum actually chose SLU and not Duke.
Yeah, it's been a while, Zach, since we've done one of these. We've teased them out in the past, and how we have all these what if questions written, right? Like about our men's basketball program, we take a scenario in history that didn't play out as we'd hoped or expected, or maybe something went completely off the rails unexpectedly. So this is more of the former, something that didn't go our way but very well could have. And yeah, the question is, Zach, what if Jayson Tatum chose SLU? We kind of had, in addition to this being topical, there was a recent reply from someone with the last name Barnes, we don't want to call him out completely, to West Pine Bills, saying that he was actually closer than we think to choosing SLU, and Jim Cruz couldn't close the deal at the time. So when West Pine Bills answered that they assume this has something to do with SLU not offering Jordan Barnes, who went to CBC, played AAU with Tatum, and went on to be a nice point guard at Indiana State. They were friends. He said it wasn't just Barnes, but it was Will Gladson, Xavier Sneed, Tyler Cook, and Mike Lewis. quote, all these guys were the keys to getting Tatum to come to SLU, it would have been more than enough. So
I have a question.
do we believe that?
I have a question.
Sure.
And as people know, I like to go down mental rabbit holes. I, I, I don't understand the implication that getting those other guys was going to get you Tatum. I feel like getting Tatum gets you those other guys.
I think the theory is if you surrounded him with his friends from high school and AAU, he was only going to play 1 year, right? So get those guys, form this core.
It's easier said than done.
And then, well, exactly.
But
and I'll get into that.
Yeah, well, that's my question is that like with this post, again, not only do you, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, saying that all Jim Cruz had to do was close the deal is get those 5 players.
Right.
That's not just not closing the deal. It's
closing 6 deals.
That's nobody name one fucking team. Name one college basketball team that had a starting 5 from the same state. Name one. Give me one fucking team.
When you get in like the small directional schools and stuff like that, I mean, I'm sure I'm sure they're out
there.
Give
me one NCAA tournament team. Fine. Give me one NCAA tournament team.
Oh, I can't do it off the top of my head.
I know.
I don't know.
Well, I would venture to say that if you spent 5 straight days on Basketball Reference, you wouldn't find one. It's probably never been done. Unless we're talking the 1950s.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing is you have to first of all delineate
in the modern era,
right? And then you would have to
the
come
shot
up with
clock era.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know off the top of my head. That's not research that I was willing to do for this. But let's play this out, right? Because this is as good as a theory as any as to whether he would have come here. So that year you have Ash Yakubu was the only guy graduating, right? So Cruz would have had to push out some combination of the following guys because this was the roster. At the end of this would have been the roster as he would have come in, right? Or sorry, the year before he came in. So you got Ash graduating, Malik Yarbrough, Miles Reynolds, Mike Crawford, Reggie Agbeko, Elliot Welmer, Austin Gilman, Brett Jolly, Matt Neufeld, Jermaine Bishop, Devel Roby, Marcus Bartley, and Marcos Semitas. So I don't get the impression Cruz was going to shove 5 of them out. I think a couple were already going to leave on their own, even without Cruz having been fired and Ford coming in. But he might have been able to get 3 of the guys from that high school list, right, at most, because I don't think Tyler Cook and Xavier Sneed were coming to SLU. Like I don't think they ever, having followed recruiting really closely at the time, they were never really looking at SLU. Now, if Jayson was coming there already, I don't know, but they were never really in play. So let's say you could have had Barnes, Gladson, and then Mike Lewis, who, by the way, later committed to SLU, but was never admitted on a technicality as a transfer, by the way. So for purposes of this hypothetical, we'll assume Yarbrough, Bartley, and Jolly left because those are the guys who didn't end up returning. And then we'll assume that Jalen Johnson never comes to SLU because he was a guy Ford brought in as a freshman. So in their place, we'll have Tatum, Will Gladson, Mike Lewis, and Jordan Barnes. And I think we would also have who's the other local kid who stayed 1 year under Ford, Zeke Moore, would have been the other one. So in this scenario also, Cruz stays at least another year. Travis Ford never comes to SLU, right? Because Cruz would have had the freshman year with Tatum. So that's already a pretty crazy thought because Ford winds up being here 8 years. So the other part of this, Zach, is does he also hire Justin Tatum as an assistant? Because some people said this was kind of the other theory. It wasn't just the players, but it may be his dad as an assistant coach that could have drawn him here. So the assistants the year that Tatum would have graduated high school were Tanner Bronson, Calbert Cheney, Jim Platt. You had Danny Brown as the director of player development, Charles Nishida as the DBO, Marcus Wilson was video coordinator.
Wasn't it Nishida? Nishida was going to get forced out?
Maybe.
That was the rumor. Sorry.
Okay.
I am playing my brain's 5 steps ahead of my mouth.
No, because so if that's the case, then fine. That answers my question.
Yes, it was I think
so
the
he
rumor
would've
was
been-
Chuck Nishida.
Okay, so director of basketball operations.
And he wasn't gonna let Chuck Nishida go.
Gotcha. Okay. So then we get
And
to the
rightfully
question set.
fucking so.
Sure. So we get to the question, what would have happened? How would this have played out? Do you have a thought here? If that's how different the roster is, those 5 spots or so, and then maybe perhaps his dad is the DBO, what do you think happens?
I just don't like. I view Cruz as an incredibly flawed coach, and just not being. I just don't see Cruz bowing to anybody over any player. So I don't. I mean, if it's the case that he needs to get more scholarships than available to be available, I just can't see him taking direction from a player or a player's family or anybody else around the program. And I certainly wouldn't want anybody to. Like, that's not why you get hired. I mean, that's a tough one because Cruz really was just a steward at the time. I don't know. I don't know. I don't see Cruz being a guy that's going to bend the knee to somebody else on player personnel decisions.
So in your mind, this doesn't even get off the ground.
Oh, I think it's a non-starter.
Right.
Like,
well, I mean, yeah.
Besides the 3, right? So anything more than, well, I think it's a non-starter because I don't think he was ever going to fire anybody or let anybody go for a recruit to hire a recruit's father. I believe that's the rumor. That's a story. I would imagine that's a cornerstone of his belief system, right?
Could he have created another position for him? I mean, you if you get 3
that's up to Chris May.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
No, I'm not throwing May under the bus here, as I want to do often.
No, you're right though. That
would be, and I would imagine. Again, there are questions I've had about many things that have happened with SLU and money and sports. I mean, I can't see why Chris May wouldn't, but then again, I've said that before when he hasn't. So what do I know?
So I guess I do want to clarify that we don't know that Jayson Tatum was asking for any of this.
No, we're
we have
operating
no idea.
under
so
an
we're playing out the
assumption.
hypothetical. So then let's assume that Jim Cruz isn't Jim Cruz, or Jim Cruz realizes he's about to be fired if he doesn't do all of this. And we wind up with those guys on the roster, those players, as well as Justin, be it as the DBO or another, special assistant to the head coach kind of thing, position that they would have come up with. And we have Jayson Tatum. Is that a team that wins the A10, makes an NCAA tournament? I mean, to play out what actually did happen, Ford comes in, SLU went 12-21. They went 6-12 in conference. They were 1-10 on the road. They had a losing record in the first round of the A10 tournament. The only players from Cruz's team to be on the roster the year after this were Welmer, Hines, Semitis, Roby, and Bishop. Roby, pretty good player. Welmer could never get healthy. Hines was a walk-on and transitioned into a scholarship player. I think Marcos just left. I don't think he even played out the season. And then Jermaine Bishop was pretty good too, but obviously didn't stay after that year.
And I think we should also point out what Duke did that year, which was 28-9,
Yes.
11-7, 5th in the ACC, 7th in the final AP poll. They went to the round of 32, I believe. And it's in that season.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting Tatum himself, it's not like he was a crazy college player, right? Like
no.
He scored 16.8 points a game. He did, he averaged about 7.3 rebounds, 2.1 assists. a little over 1 steal, a little over a block. He was good from the free throw line, 85%. From 3, he only shot 34%. And then from 2, he was more like 50%. So he had a very good year, but not the kind of numbers that were like, no doubt number 1 pick. If you're just going to look at what he did in college, it was more about his potential, right? Because he also did miss a few games with injury and kind of played through some games hurt. He appeared in 29 games, which is actually more than I remember. But he did miss some.
And he was surrounded by NBA draft picks and players. I mean, Luke Kennard, Grayson Allen, Frank Jackson, Amelie Jefferson, Harry Giles, Marcus Bolden, Jack White, Javen Delorier.
Yeah. So 9 players on their team that year played in the NBA, and some are still playing in the NBA.
So, I mean, look, I think you could, it's clear that Jim Crews wasn't suited to teach or continue the style of play that, or the discipline style of play that Majerus instituted. And I think it's been well documented that team coached themselves in those 2 NCAA tournament appearances under Crews. The team has said it themselves. I'm not just throwing that out there for my health. So I don't know. Does Jayson Tatum dominate in the A10? That's a great question. Let's see. I mean, is looking at his, where's his game splits? I need to pull up his game splits.
So he, my issue
Our
with
game
the
logs. Here we go.
Is like the guys he would have brought in, right? Like let's say the guys who we said would come in. Jordan Barnes wound up being a really nice point guard.
Yeah.
At Indiana State. Will Gladson, he's a guy who blew out his knees in high school. Like he was tracking as a much bigger high school prospect, like his freshman, sophomore, like early on, and then he blew out his knees, and he was never really 100% after that. He didn't put up big. He went to Princeton, did not put up big numbers there. So you can't really say he would have been a big difference maker. I
am so confused by Duke's schedule here. They literally played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 non-conference games. Is that real?
I'm sure it's not.
That's all he played in. So did he miss?
Yeah, he missed a number of games. So if they went 28-9, he missed 8 games.
Okay. So, I was very confused by that.
Yeah. No. So that is quite a few. Yeah. Anyway, so the other player would be Mike Lewis, who wound up being a very good college player, really good 3-point shooter. But Lewis, Barnes, Gladson, those guys, they would have been freshmen, right? And you're putting them with all of those other players from Jim Cruz's team, right? So you've got like Miles Reynolds, DeVell Roby, Aaron Hines, Jermaine Bishop, a few of those bigs that we mentioned before. I just like, to me, we get right back to the issue that those 2 Jim Crews teams that fell off just didn't have a lot of talent. They had a lot of guys who would have been a nice 6th man, 7th man kind of thing. But you've basically got Jayson Tatum, a couple promising freshmen, and a bunch of Jim Crews players. I just don't think it is quite enough to be dominant. Now, could they have competed in the A10 that year with an extraordinary talent like Tatum? He would have put up bigger numbers than he had at Duke. Sure. Yeah, that would have happened. Maybe he doesn't even get hurt. I don't know, like he did at Duke. I don't know. But the point that I'm making is I just don't think that the depth on that team is quite what you needed it to be. There was a lack of depth and a lack of experience at the same time. It would have been a weird roster.
Here's the question. I guess we can get further into this and look at, Larry Hughes was what, number 7 pick, the 7th pick to the Philadelphia 76ers?
I think 8th.
8th.
Yeah,
Tatum was 3rd to the Celtics. I mean, you look at just kind of, again, this is transitive property, pop, analysis bullshit, but like, look at the impact Larry Hughes had in, Conference USA. You could make the case that a 3rd round pick or a 3rd overall pick in a weaker conference has a bigger impact. Do I think we make an NCAA tournament? Absolutely.
Oh, you think we do?
Yeah. I mean, I think I mean, that Larry Hughes team had pieces on it. I don't know if they were any better than what you described with the guys that hypothetically would have been on this team.
Sure.
So I think we make an NCAA tournament. I don't know what happens after that. That's the real hypothetical.
Is once Tatum leaves then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once Tatum leaves, I mean, that's
that's where we move into. We're going to cover that next time when we talk about what if the Jim Cruz situation. Did we go over that already? Who to hire or like when they should have fired Cruz? Have we gone into that yet?
I don't think we've done that
one. I think we should stop here and then transition it into the Jim Cruz when they should have fired him.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that. What happens now in the spring of 2017 when Jayson
this
Tatum
would be an unbelievable like serial offshoot podcast. Year by year, just exploring alternate timelines like we're Community.
Yes. It's the ultimate work of fan
darkest. What is the darkest Billiken timeline?
Sometimes I think we live it, Zach. Sometimes I think we have lived it. We're trying to play out the fantasy timeline. Like, what if everything went our way?
Oh my God. I really think this is the best episode in a long time. I am enjoying the hell out of this. So God.
Let's get to our next topic then.
Yes. Why are we talking about NCAA tournament expansion?
Why not?
I mean, look, where's the respect for history, Pete? The respect for tradition.
All right, let's get into it.
No, yeah, I mean, look, the NCAA is always going to be looking for more money. Coaches are always going to be looking for closer goalposts to save their jobs.
Sure.
ADs too. Pretty much anybody who is going to benefit from the NCAA tournament growing. Right now, they're kind of talking about 72 to 76 teams, and it could happen as soon as 25, 26 season. Pete, where do you stand on expansion? I don't want to see it, but if I have to see it, it has to be a specific goal in mind. I have a specific goal in mind for what I would like it to look like.
So then let me make the case for it then, because Division I has grown. There are now 362 D1 programs and 2 more on the way.
Time to relegate.
Going from 68 to 76 feels more like a correction, I think, than an unnecessary expansion. And that's because there were 280 Division I programs in 1985 when it expanded to 64 teams, meaning that 22.8% made the tournament. In 2024, 68 out of 251 eligible teams made it, which is only 19.4%. And that percentage would decrease even more as the 11 transitioning programs, remember 362, become eligible. And as 2 more move up and begin their 4-year transition phase. And just to clarify, during that time when teams transition their first 4 years, they're not eligible for the tournament. So in a couple of years, we're about to have 362 teams, and then it'll be 364 that are all eligible for it. So there's already been expansion. We went from 64 to 68 in 2011, which ruined the perfect symmetry of the 64 team bracket. And it made picking our brackets harder with 4 play-in games on that Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. So does adding a few more of those really mess up the sanctity of the tournament, like some are saying it will? The other thing is this expansion, it's not going to be enough to guarantee bids for both regular season and conference tournament champions. But I think you and I would probably both like to see the more dominant regular season conference champs rewarded, even if they don't win the conference tournament and don't have a super high net rating because of their conference. So that's one consideration. Another, this might act as a deterrent to some of those other proposed postseason tournaments we've heard about that TV networks are pushing and that are really designed to extend the season and make some money off of the most mediocre power conference teams. Some of those are going to get in a newly expanded NCAA tournament, but hopefully not a majority of those bids. And you mentioned this before, but one byproduct of this is more stability in coaching, I think, because coaches get fired when they're expected to make the tournament and don't make it. I think a smaller coaching carousel might actually be a good thing in a sport that really needs more stability right now. As much as we might roll our eyes at the thought of these guys getting a little protected. But my bottom line is that as long as the extra spots aren't just a way to cram in more bottom half power conference teams, I support it. And by the way, those kind of teams have always made it. There's always been mediocre power conference teams getting at-large bids. Even before there was a 24-hour sports conversation happening publicly, there were just fewer power conference teams before. So there were naturally more spots for other teams to get in. Expansion is probably the only way to make that possible again. So that's my case for it, Zach.
The defense rests. No, I think I saw someone mention the percentages and just make it a percent. Like I guess I don't know.
Ken Palm was one person to make it, but I know a lot of other people have.
Yeah, I don't mind that idea, but I do think they should probably come up with some way to lessen the number of teams in Division One. That would be
the issue is the teams that are coming up are all pretty worthy.
Yeah,
it's the teams that have been around for a while that
the
are
legacy.
Yeah, like there are some kind of bum programs in there.
And I think you do got to be careful there because you run into some programs that are schools that aren't. It's not that they don't want to; it's that they just fucking can't.
Yeah,
you run into insensitive. I guess
sure.
It's really bad PR when you tell an HBCU, hey, sorry, you get relegated, Holmes.
Well, and Chicago State is probably the recent example of that.
Right.
They have been without a conference for a number of years. It's a school that has been in financial trouble. It's an HBCU. They are joining the NEC though. So they are joining a conference. It seems like they have a lifeline. They're doing a little bit better. They actually have been somewhat competitive the last couple seasons as an independent too. So I think, you're looking at a team like that. And that's one where a few years ago, everybody was saying, just go down to D2. But they're somehow managing to hang on. So I don't think you can actually have real relegation because of a host of legal issues.
Sure.
You just have to hope teams do it on their own. And every once in a while they do. Like I think Hartford is the most recent one. And they actually went down to D3. So anyway, I don't hate expansion. It just, they have to be smart about it.
Pete, this was a big week for offers. This was like your spring break. This was your spring break as far as holidays go.
I wish I got a spring break.
I know. Run us through the offers. There were some new ones and then some refreshes.
Yeah, so we'll do the new ones first, and they're both 2025 offers. Matthew Zobrist visited SLU last week, and then SLU offered on Sunday. He's a 6'5" guard from Metamora High School in Illinois. He plays his AAU ball from Mid-Pro Academy. Sharpshooter is really what he is. He's got range, but he's really a smart player on and off the ball. He gets open, he finds his spots, but he's also got great vision and makes plays for his teammates. He just got a few offers all of a sudden, but otherwise has kind of been flying under the radar. Loyola Chicago, Indiana State, Illinois State, Bradley, Miami, Ohio, Eastern Illinois, and Bryant are his other offers at the moment. The other one from 2025 is Isaiah Seeley. Now he's a 6'7" guard forward hybrid player from Springdale, Arkansas. He plays for Springdale High School and Team THAD AAU, which is a Nike EYBL program. The offer is a little surprising to me, Zach, because he's already a top 100 prospect. He's got offers from Arkansas, Creighton, Minnesota, Mizzou, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Virginia Tech, Louisville, and Oral Roberts. When you see him play, though, you can see why he'd be so attractive to shirts in his program. Long, athletic player. He started out kind of more as a small forward, and he's really developed a more complete guard skill set, so he can easily play the 1 to the 3 in a traditional offense, or he can certainly guard 3 or 4 positions defensively. The refreshes are both in the 2026 class, and it's twins, Jameson and Jahadi White. Jahadi White Jr., actually, their dad played in the NBA. You might recognize his name from the Washington Wizards, from Georgetown. The Suns attended, or they do attend Chaminade, and Shirts refreshed their offers on Monday. We've talked about them in the past, but just as kind of a reminder, Jahadi Jr. is more of a power forward. He's just a a really big body inside, and surprisingly good mid-range game as well. He's a nice prospect with just a huge frame. Jamison is just a little bit smaller. He's more of a small forward, but again, growing, and he's got good length. Their other offers at the moment are from SEMO and Lindenwood, but I imagine both of them are going to have some more coming up here over the course of the summer, and then later once you get into the basketball season. So a lot of activity on the recruiting front right now, but those are the offers.
Jahadi White was the one who picked up the Billiken hat, or was that, and then put it back down? Switch it, who, or am I miss?
I don't.
I think I got it
remember.
wrong. I think I
don't
got it
remember.
wrong because I think I remember it was a singles cap, but it wasn't Georgetown. The other one. So I think I got that wrong.
People might remember him as Jahadi White, by the way.
Dude, that's what
it's the weirdest thing. His name is actually Jahadi, and at some point it got changed by someone somewhere to Jahidi, and he went by that professionally. And now he's saying like, no, it's actually Jahadi. That's my real name. It's a weird thing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Let's schedule. This it might be the weirdest thing that I have ever seen. I don't know how to qualify that, but it's weird as shit.
Yeah, so we already knew that our season opener was going to be November 4th against Santa Clara at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But now we know it's part of a 3-game event hosted by the Field of 68. And where this gets weird, Zach, the other 2 games are Charleston SIUC and South Dakota State McNeese, which means there are a lot of former Billikens in the event. Charleston has Stefan Bussell and Georgie Churchich, as well as Chris Harriman as one of Chris Mack's assistant coaches. And then McNeese not only has Sincere Parker, but that's where our former walk-on Lamont Evans went. So 5 guys from last year's roster / coaching staff are going to be playing right after us in Sioux Falls on November 4th. That is weird.
By the way, shout out Stefan Bussell for getting my Austria Kurt Schischnig reference today.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
He's a German. He knows his history.
Oh no, he's a Dutch, Pete.
Oh, I keep getting him.
I know. I did it too. Which I thought it would have been funnier if it was. I thought it would have been much funnier if a German would have acknowledged the joke.
I know.
They were the they were the ones to depose Mr. Schischnig.
No, I keep
Professor
getting him
Schischnig,
with another former big man right before him who was German. So
I think we just love great stories. I think we just love great stories about SLU professors. I think that's
we do.
I think that's our niche.
Yeah.
Or is it niche? Is it our
niche.
Frederick Nietzsche? Okay, never mind. I was trying to get academic. Tell me about this podcast, Zach Boisvert. I got it right. Was the guest on this week?
He was the guest on Hardwood Hustle, the podcast last week. It's about 40 minutes long, I think just under that. And it's a really wonky, coach-friendly discussion, heavy X's and O's. He and these hosts just get right into it. And they don't walk you through it at all. They really talk ball. I mean, like nitty gritty coaches around a whiteboard, kind of breaking things down. He does have a line or two about Rick Majerus in there. And if we ever get him on the show, I would love to ask him some questions about Majerus, because there's a few things he's either said since he's been hired or in the past before he was hired that I think he really has tremendous respect for Majerus. But anyway, good listen if that's your kind of thing. If it's not, it's really wonky stuff.
We've got Christian Nunez announced he's heading to Delaware State as an assistant coach and director of player development. I know a lot of people are high on Christian Nunez. I know People around the program have expressed to me directly that he knows his shit, and they think very highly of him.
Yeah,
So exciting
I
for him.
think yeah, so this is the second DPD job in a row for him, but they're also calling him an assistant coach. And I like that if he does have that recruiting assistant role as well, because personality wise, I think there's a lot of Tate in him where like the players really, really love him and
Yeah,
respect him. And he's a New York City guy. So I know he recruits
the
that.
Mecca.
Yeah, so he recruits that area really well. He's also Dominican, and seems pretty wired in with like the Dominican basketball world, and
And
always
that
propping those
fits
guys
in
up.
with the East Coast and New York, and
Sure, yeah.
it
So
all kind of comes together.
yeah, best of luck to him, and yeah, he'll be good.
Pete, you mentioned this Boisvert guest spot on the Hardwood Hustle, and it really it sounds like it's very complicated and very you got to really know a lot. But one thing that isn't complicated and very simple are the ingredients in Two Men in a Garden products.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And another thing that they do that is really simple, really easy, really idiot proof for someone like me, is they have what's called these pickling pouches on their
Oh,
website. And I love these. Every once in a while, they generously throw one in my order, and I love to experiment with them. And right now, what I've done, they sent me the Real Deal Dill, which is kind of their base dill recipe. It's a really simple pouch. You kind of open up the bottom a little bit, tear open the top. You put in a little bit of water, a little bit of vinegar, and then whatever veggies you want to throw in there. Get the air out, seal it up, and put it in the fridge for 3 days. And you have pickles at the end of it. So what I did was I took 4 baby cucumbers. I left one whole, one in half, put one in quarters, and the other one I went into slices. Put all 4 in the pouch, shook it up, put it in the fridge. It's been there now. I'm on day 2, so I'm about halfway there. And I will report back next week what my results are, Zach. But I'm really excited for the potential here, and can't wait to have my own quote unquote homemade Two Men in a Garden pickles, because having just gotten a jar of their regular dill pickles, I gotta say they are killer, and I can't wait to see how mine turn out. So head on over to twomeninagarden.com and find out for yourself.
oh, let's talk baseball. This has been an just a roller coaster of a week, 2 weeks. Yeah, roller coaster of 2 weeks now. Outgoing transfers. We already knew Jackson Holmes was in the portal, but he's heading to Missouri State. Graham Mastros, yeah, Jackson Jarberry was what I was going to go with there. Jackson Yarberry are now in the portal as well, bringing the total up to 10. Um, both promising freshmen, which really adds a little bit of insult to injury. One
Yeah.
in the lineup, one was in the rotation. Um, by the way, on Billiken.com, Okie Billiken does a really great job at tracking baseball transfer portal and really just baseball news that really slips by us.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate that. We got to give him credit, I think.
We do. He lives, I think, down in Florida, and he is a retired guy who's wired into college
This
baseball.
dude
and
goes, hey, by the way,
he travels.
this dude's, I think this is a look into my future, really, is what I'm concerned about.
Concerned. I think that's the life.
Yeah, that's true. I'm probably mislabeling it. We got some incoming transfers, however, announced today by the baseball Twitter account. JT Crab, a junior catcher, I almost said center, from Lake Forest, California, Orange Coast College. Pete, I like Halversons that play for the Billikens, and we've got I don't think they're related. They might be, I don't know. Ian Halverson, junior shortstop from Vista, California. He's transferring from Palomar College. Whatever. Steven Hernandez, a redshirt sophomore, left-handed pitcher from Chandler, Arizona. He played at Arizona State and South Mountain College. That's a nice little Division I pedigree there. Chase Minor, a redshirt senior right-handed pitcher from Merced, California, who played at San Francisco and San Diego. Christian Pownell, a redshirt freshman left-handed pitcher from Russiaville, Indiana. Don't tell Lil Bana X. And he also played at Ohio State, which is pretty awesome as well. Strider Salas, junior right-handed pitcher, also from South Mountain College, originally from Chandler, Arizona, played at Utah Valley. The sixth transfer joining class, it also includes incoming freshman Hank Gomerick. We need more Hanks in this world, Pete.
Definitely.
Tyler Holman, Lucas Red, and Adam Shipley. Pete, we dealt a lot with we entered the world of the baseball coaching carousel.
We did, and we dealt with some rumors, Zach, because Darren Hendrickson, the head coach at SLU, was rumored to be a candidate for the Indiana State job, but they ultimately hired the Southern Indiana coach instead, right after they announced their new athletic director, just a day or two after that. And then Dayton also filled its open position with an assistant coach from Penn State. So the baseball coaching carousel has not stopped all the way yet, but we will continue to keep an eye on things, Zach, because Hendo's name keeps coming up with some of these, regionally possible jobs, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of it I mean, I think he's a guy that's going to get interest. He's got a long history of success, a huge pedigree. I think we don't have a lot of time on this one, but I do want to get into Nate Latch, his tweet from today. I don't think we're going to have time to get into it tonight, but he tweeted a little bit about Tony Vitello and a connection to SLU baseball back in the day at some point. That I kind of took issue with the timeline and just said anyway. But yeah, I mean, I think Hendrickson has to be a guy whose name pops up anytime there's a coaching vacancy at a college that puts forth resources. Hendrickson has been on Twitter on occasion, really just wanting. He's like the writers of that Showtime Lakers series, just begging for any sort of support. So it would not surprise me at all to see a program with a little more resources lure him away. But as of right now, it seems he's going to be here. The West Pine Bills tweeted out. Hendrickson tweeted out today. When that class was announced, that transfer class. 70 wins last 2 years, A10 champs last year. Many, many graduates, soon to be draftees, I think is what he meant to say. And only one thing left with eyes emojis. Welcome to the Billikens. And West Pine Bills said NCAA College World Series soon. And Hendrickson replied with a bulldozer moving dirt. So read the tea leaves for me, Pete. Are we getting facilities?
I mean, I hope. I hope so.
I really hope. I hope that they just the bare minimum, man.
Yeah.
All right. Pete, tennis. This one hurt.
It did, Zach, and it's kind of making me regret bringing it up a couple months ago.
This is your fault.
I jinxed it. Head coach Justin Stuckey is heading to Drake. We probably should have kept our mouths shut, and by that I mean me. Instead of hyping him as a rising star a couple months ago, but I couldn't help it because all he's done is win at every program he's been at, starting at lower level of performance at every school and then bringing them all the way up to mostly their best seasons ever. He did it at SLU. He did it at lower division schools without a lot of resources. 30 wins this year between the men's and women's program, I think 15 apiece. Now he's going to a school with an actual tennis facility with 6 indoor and 6 outdoor courts. But the quote from the athletic director is what kind of stung, Zach.
I kind of love it though. It stung, but it was honest. Kind of like it was. I got that scrapey thing they'll do to your muscles on your knee.
Yeah,
they did that, and it was kind of like that. Like it was a bit cathartic.
Yeah.
But also like, what the hell are you doing? That hurts.
Yeah, so he said, we are thrilled to welcome Justin to Drake. His experience as a program building head coach at 4 schools will be a tremendous asset to our tennis program. At St. Louis, Justin has led both the men's and women's programs to new heights, despite not having indoor nor outdoor courts on campus. I look forward to seeing what Justin is able to do as a head coach of one program with tremendous tennis facilities and community sport support that we enjoy at Drake.
Has anyone checked on Chris May? Because he got dunked on.
That's a Valley school talking down to us, and honestly, in this case, it's deserved. So
I don't like it, Pete.
They've got the on-campus facility. They've got a little bit more of a program, and you can't blame Stuckey for taking the job. He did an excellent job at SLU, just as he did everywhere else, and I think he's going to be a good fit for them.
Yeah, I do too. Unfortunately. Well, fortunately and unfortunately. Pete, I'm really excited though about this volleyball schedule. I think on the surface, just from pure name recognition, I think it's a great schedule. There's some nostalgia in there as well. And I'm going to get to that. But the season starts at the end of August with the Arkansas State Invitational. I believe they went there last year as well. I want to say it's the second year they've done this, but it includes Ole Miss and SEMO. The Billiken Invitational is really exciting because you get that Xavier old A10 nostalgia as they're going to come to town along with Army and Illinois State. The Dr. Mary Jo Wynn Invitational at Missouri State will include the Bears, UT Arlington, and Weber State. They're going to head to the Hawkeye Invitational, which will give them a road game against a Power 5 team, Drake and South Dakota on a neutral court. And then for the A10 slate, they'll play 2 games at Rhode Island, VCU, 2-game series at Fordham, VCU, Rhode Island, and GW. At home, they'll have 2-game series against Duquesne, Davidson, George Mason, and Dayton. And then, of course, that midweek home and home that they had last year will replicate itself again this season with Loyola. Weber State and Dayton were NCAA tournament teams. A number of other schools played in the NIVC, which is like the volleyball NIT. Again, had no freaking clue that existed.
Yeah, me neither.
Wait, did
Arkansas State, by the way, I just looked it up, was 2 years ago. Arkansas State.
Okay.
Yeah, you were right.
The Billikens welcome back 10 returners and welcome 9 new faces in the form of freshmen. Pete, we had some fun men's soccer news. Billikens in the pros.
We sure did, because John Klein signed to a first-team contract with St. Louis City through the end of 2024 with team options in 2025 and 26. And he's now come on as a sub in each of the past 2 games and played pretty well, kind of around I think it was the 71st minute of the last game and similar in the first game. So he's getting his MLS shot, Zach. And so far he's acquitted himself pretty well from what I've seen.
Yeah, I thought he made some, I thought there were some nervous, looked like jitters out there this past game, but I thought he played really well without the ball when we weren't in possession. And I think he's, like I said on Twitter, where John Klein goes, goals tend to follow, whether him or off an assist from him. So I think City struggled to kind of get offense and defense for that matter. And John Klein can really do both. So, and he's bringing energy too. So
it's a struggling, injured team right now, and he's getting a shot. So
yeah, number 41 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts, Johnny Klein.
That's right.
That's gonna do it for us. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode because this was one of the most fun episodes I feel like I've had in not to say I don't have fun, but like this was just a lot of fun, Pete.
Yeah, this was great. And thanks to everybody. If you're checking us out for the first time, or if you're a long time listener, we appreciate everybody.
We're trying to get that Sarah Adam bump.
We sure are. We're going to have to repost this once the games actually start.
Yes,
Because,
it just has its own individual interview.
right. Yeah.
All right, that's gonna do it. Go USA Wheelchair Rugby and go Bills.
Go Bills.